How did we first meet David Bowie, Christine?
Well, you met him through me, didn't you?
I did, Christine.
He
yes.
came and stayed with us as an old friend of my ex-husband. And then he moved down to Mary's, who I was also a very good friend of.
What happened was that I heard this music coming out of Christina and Barry's flat, which was on the top floor. And there was a very respectable lady sandwiched in the middle between the two flats. And I think she had a bit of a hard time, actually. In fact, I know she did. Because I heard this extremely good, very professional, very, very nice music coming out of their window. And so I was lying sunbathing in the garden, and I sort of shouted up and I said, "Who's that?" And this sort of very pale, slightly snotty-nosed face with a halo of permed blonde hair poked out, and it was David, and he had a cold, but he was still singing very nicely. And I said, "Who are you?" And he said, "I'm David." And I said, "Come downstairs and play for me," and he did. And that evening we had a party in my garden, very impromptu, as it was going to happen, because they didn't have a garden, I did.
I had a very small balcony.
They all trooped down, and we had a party that went on until the wee small hours. And by the end of the evening, David had agreed to come and live with me as my lodger in my flat, and that was how it started. And then what happened after that?
Barry and I used to go up to the Arts Lab in London, and
I was at the Arts Lab
and we decided, why don't we start a folk club in Beckenham? And so we approached the 3 towns, and they said yes, and that was it. That was the beginning of a very exciting time.
It certainly was. And do you remember the first night? There were sort of like a little scattering of people.
And I was a very foreign, shy woman, just collecting money.
But with great charm, and people parted with it very willingly and much happiness.
And paid a lot of money.
And the second week, the second Sunday, I think it had sort of quadrupled the number of people who came. It had risen to about 50, and then after that it just exploded.
Escalated. And of course it's changed here. It used to be a door a little bit further down, but you had to go through.
This platform wasn't here, and there was all that fancy stuff out there.
No. Nothing, and it was you had to go through a corridor to a door where I was sitting inside that door, collecting. And then this was the back room.
But it was utterly different from the way it is now. I mean, it had...
The only thing that looks the same is the Beckenham High Street. It's the only thing I remember.
But the way we dressed it up, we hung sheets all around the walls and put light projectors onto them with this exploding coloured
You did
lights.
that.
I did that first off, and then somebody else came along and did it better. Do you remember? And we had about 3 projectors going eventually. Because I borrowed one from a friend of mine in London.
Was it black and white?
Black. No, it was coloured. I used to drip coloured ink in between slides.
Yeah, that's right.
And I was
by the heat.
And then stick it in the slide projector, and the heat made it go like this splat. That was how they all happened in those days. And by the end of the evening, I was inky up to my armpits.
A thing now to do the same thing. People do it now.
It's all electronic now.
Yeah, no, they're going back to the old-fashioned way. Some of the raves and
it's extremely messy. But it was the overall atmosphere of the place that really became something very special, because people came from everywhere and brought all their talents.
Even from London.
Oh, yes. And some jolly famous people too.
Jolly famous?
Yeah. Peter Frampton, Rick Wakeman, Dave Cousins and the Strawbs, Tony Visconti.
And they were all just people like us in those days.
Who lent me his white Rolls Royce because he fancied David. Yeah, and he wanted to get rid of me.
I didn't know about that.
Oh, yeah. He said, go. And I said, I'm not going. He said, all right, how about driving my Roland? So I said, yes, please. And it was a drop-head white roller. So he got rid of me for a little while so that he could flirt with David. But I don't think David was very interested.
Oh, look at that. That's the Free concert.
Oh, my God, yes, that's the Free Festival. Yes.
That's the freeze. That's yeah, that is.
That is a very nice picture.
The one. Yeah.
He was a beautiful boy.
Yeah, beautiful boy.
Yeah.
And he was utterly miserable because his dad had died a couple of days before. But he was a great showman.
And he loved his father very, very much.
Yeah.
It actually,
And he just went on and did the show in a state of absolutely total traumatised grief. But he put on a wonderful show and wrote a wonderful song about it afterwards called Memory of a Free Festival. The Sun Machine, a mantra.
That's it.
Yeah.
What's the philosophy of the Arts Lab?
Free for all, really. I mean, creative space. Much more
Music,
than entertainment. Yeah, a lot of music, but a lot of
lack of it in Beckenham at the
There
time.
was not much entertainment.
Nothing at all.
but fun, and also a lot of creativity and a lot of very high idealism as well. I mean, we were building a creative community, and a lot
Young
of
people with big visions.
yes, really, it was like that, and it was a very idealistic time. What do I do now? I am a consultant for a website called My Offers, and I think we've all gone down that path pretty well. Very successful ones who can afford to pay highly skilled writers. And
And I'm a painter, not a decorator.
does beautiful pictures
Yeah.
and sells them all over the world.
Yes. Lucky me.
So it was definitely a creative crucible. It was. It was a pressure cooker. A lot of people became very successful afterwards. It wasn't just a hippie fantasy. David Bowie became a rock star extraordinaire. Steve Harley did pretty good too. And George Underwood became very successful.
He's
Tony
and he's
Visconti.
still a very good friend of David's.
Right.
And a very successful painter, artist.
And my friend here has been a photographer and done wonderful things too, haven't you, Dave?
Well, I have, yeah. I've been a journalist and translator, and still a bit of photography, art photography on the side. I mean, I never really was a music industry photographer, but obviously being around David, I was very excited by the things that were happening in the Arts Lab, and it was nice to catch it, perhaps in this picture more than any other. This picture went on. I did a very large print of this and gave it to David, who gave it to his mother. And I think that it spent quite a long time on her wall. She used to tell people it was her favourite picture of David. There were quite a number of people taking pictures on the day, but I think this was perhaps the definitive picture of Bowie at the Free Festival. And so it pops up in fan magazines, particularly in Japan and other places as well. This was at Beckenham Recreation Ground, wasn't it?
Free concert.
The free concert, which was the 16th of August, wasn't it?
Oh, you remember the date? I certainly do. That's pretty good.
16th of August.
Well, if I think anyone's going to ask me, I'd get out Peter and Eddie Gilman's book and look it up.
Well, and it was a beautiful day, I remember.
It was
It was.
I remember it
absolutely
well.
magic.
I remember leaving the ground sitting on your Jeep.
My Jeep,
Or Barry's Jeep.
I don't remember a Jeep.
I think there was a
It
great
was an
part-
open top car that we
Yes,
all drove back to Foxgrove Road in with this great sacks full of money.
that's true.
Yes.
Because the Free Festival made about £250. It came out well in profit.
In those days,
that was
a
money.
lot of money.
It
Well,
was.
I remember-
in those days, you only earned about £15 a week, and that was an
I
average
remember
wage.
Angela Barnett was cooking hamburgers in a wheelbarrow.
That's
She
right.
probably made quite a bit of money for you there.
I think she did. And people gave us.
Chas
Did
Lippy had
you
his
sell them
organic
raw
fruits.
or burnt?
No, they were great.
Well,
They were all right.
Yeah. Chas Lippy had his organic fruit juice stall.
That's right.
I remember that.
And somebody did candy floss.
Yes.
And Calvin Mark V gave a whole pile of San Francisco psychedelic posters.
Yeah.
Real sort of collector's items even then.
Oh, I don't.
And those all got sold. And they made really serious money.
Yeah.
And he just donated them. Yeah, because he paid for the recording of Space Oddity. He sold all his paintings to finance it. He was in love with David too.
Oh, quite a lot of people.
Quite a lot of people were, male and female. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I came and went from and to Beckenham. I came back to Beckenham in the beginning of '69, and I heard through my late lamented friend Spud Murphy that there was something happening called the Beckenham Arts Lab, and the first event I went to was a sort of encounter group, and David Bowie was there. I remember he said, "My name's David Bowie, and my brother's in Cane Hill." And I don't know whether it was because it was on his mind or because he just wanted to shock people, perhaps a combination of the two. And then obviously, as time went on, our paths crossed quite a bit. I used to, when Bowie was not able to play at the club here, I used to co-host the shows with my friend Ken Simmons, who's coincidentally here today as well. And as Bowie was rather short of money at the time, I was asked to take some pictures of him, which I did. One ended up on an album cover, and quite a few were handed out to the music press at the time. Payment for pictures hadn't been invented back in the 60s, so I fortunately stuck to my day job at the Ministry of Defence. But it was a great experience. I mean, it was a lot of fun, and the free festival, it was just in retrospect, perhaps we remember it more fondly than it was, but really it was a very happy event. There was no friction, there was no trouble. I think that, I don't even know if there was one policeman on duty. I don't think he had anything to do all day. And we cleared up. We went over the recreation ground at the end of the day, and with our little bags, picking up every last piece of paper. And we rewarded ourselves with an Indian meal. And it was a small scale thing. I mean, I can't remember how many people were there. But hundreds, I think, rather than thousands. But it was a great experience, and it's just been fun today, 32 years later, amazingly enough, some of us are still around to tell the tale.
The most disappointed person today is my wife. She can't do it. With the cupboard full of all the
It's been great for us to come along to this event today. I mean, it's quite an inspiration to think that the Arts Lab was born in Beckenham, and in many ways is one of the reasons why the studio can actually exist today. The studio is an arts centre which caters for everybody, one way or another. We provide theatre, live music, as well as a workshop programme and training programmes for adults and young people in all kinds of arts disciplines. One of the other things that is a long-running activity at the studio is the Acoustic Music Club, where we have a host who's a local musician who encourages any musician of any age, of any ability, to come along and play every Tuesday evening. Anyone can come along. They come to the bar and put their name down, perform, and it's a great platform for local talent to be able to express what they want to do and to gain experience of performing in front of an audience, which is quite a different thing from performing in your own bedroom. So we try to encourage as many people as possible to come along to that, and I think that that's the kind of activity that can actually create a star eventually, and if it doesn't, then the process is the important thing. It's the enjoyment of the music and the performing and the sharing of it with others that we try to promote. As a local authority-funded arts centre, we have several priorities, and one of those is to encourage young people to take up music and drama and dance and singing, or whatever their chosen art form is, in order to encourage more people to get into cultural industries and find work in those areas. And today's been a real boost to promoting those ideals.
Do you not see my tattoo? There
you go. My name is Ken Simmons, and more about that later. We're at the Three Tons in Beckenham, although the brewery now insists on calling it the Rat and Parrot. Now, if we go back a few decades, in early 1969, I was running a folk club not far from here called the Downham Folk Club, which is a pretty regular weekly folk club. We had reports on our club that appeared in the local paper, the Bromley Times, and one day I read about another folk club starting up at the Three Tons that was being organised by one David Bowie. Well, I'd heard the name, but I'd never met him. So I went along on a Sunday night to the Three Tons, and I got to the door where people had to pay to go in. I explained I was from another folk club, which usually meant you didn't have to pay. But they said, still 2 shillings or whatever to get in. In the far corner, through the door, I could see someone performing. The image I had was someone really electric and, as they say now, with star quality. And it was David Bowie. So I paid my money, I went in, and I got to know David. Off stage, very, very easygoing, very down to earth. I came, on different times to the Three Tons. I played a few songs. I tried to be entertaining. I wasn't a good musician or a good singer, but I tried to make people laugh. David once said to me, "I wish I could be humorous on stage." And I said, "David, I wish I could be musical." I said, "We should get together." We didn't, but we could have done, because I'm Ken Simmons, my real name is Ken Smith, and David is David Jones. And I did say, well, maybe we could call ourselves alias Smith and Jones. Anyway, one day David said to me, "Can I play at your folk club?" And I said, "Well, that's fine, but okay. How much would you charge?" And he said, "Well, as it's local, £5. And I said, "Okay, David, it's a deal, but you pay your own bus fare home." So that was okay. So he came to our club. He had Bass Oddity in the charts as well, and we had a really incredible, electrifying gig. Then David went off doing gigs around the country, and he did ask me to do occasional comparing, to step in when he wasn't around. And that was really great fun. It was a brilliant audience, and Angie was usually here as well, who was probably the best audience you could have. She had a great sense of humour. Then David stopped coming to the Three Tons, so in December 1969 I popped round to see him at Haddon Hall down the road in Beckenham, and he indicated to me that maybe he was becoming a little disillusioned with the music business. But people were coming and going in the house, and we started to have an impromptu jam session. I'm not a musician, but we got people going, and it got David back in the mood of playing. And so the next day, which was Sunday, he came back to the Tons and played, even though this gig is not in any of the listings I've seen so far. I think this inspired him to go further in his career. And he came back in January with a live band, and that band included Mick Ronson on lead guitar and Tony Visconti on bass guitar. And I do remember that Mick Ronson's band at the time were called the Rats. So that's the only connection now with the name here, that it's still called, now called the Rat and Parrot instead of the Three Tons. David's last gig here was on a Thursday night, because myself and another guy had started an alternative folk club in addition to the Sunday night. So an hour after we'd opened, it was on Thursday the 19th of March 1970, David still hadn't arrived. I went down to Haddon Hall and I spoke to the partner of Tony Visconti. She said, "Don't tell anyone, they don't want anyone to know, but David and Angie are getting married tomorrow. But they are coming for the gig." So they did turn up. We had a great gig. They brought a girl along who sang and played guitar. I think her name was Claire. When I came to pay David at the end of the night, he said, "Don't give me the money, give it to Claire." And so I still kept quiet about the wedding, but apparently it did get leaked to the Bromley Times by David's mum. I always thought maybe David would think it was me who revealed the wedding to the Bromley Times, because it was a friend of mine who came as the Bromley Times reporter to cover the wedding. So the last time I saw David and Angie together was after the birth of their baby boy, who they said they were going to call Surrey, but I understand now he's called Duncan. So I guess after that we sort of lost touch, although I went to see him at the Lewisham Odeon. And I think my last connection with them, apart from seeing Mick Ronson from time to time, was in 1977 when I met Angie, walking down Wardour Street or wherever in London. We had a long chat, and I guess that was the last that I've seen of them.
Avril here was a sort of best mate of Susie Pussy, and can you remember Susie going up to Haddon Hall to do Barry's hairstyle for him?
They had a long evening, a long chat that evening to decide on the colour he had when he was doing Ziggy Stardust, and also I always used to do his mother's hair as well, Peggy, for many, many years. Very proud mum of her son, naturally, because he was a very famous person.
And is it true that Susie performed a minor felony in the sense that she nicked some dye from the evening pageant storeroom to take up the
Quite
Haddon Hall?
possibly, yes.
And
That
what was
is
the colour? Did you tell me?
Georgette.
Georgette.
Yes. Very, very, very red.
Right.
Very, very red. Yeah. They spent hours, doing that style. It was just between the two of them, really. They worked for a long time deciding which colour it was going to be, because he's always got different images, David. So that was the image he wanted at the time. And she gave up working in the salon and went off on tour with him to Japan and Australia. And that was it, and married his lead guitarist, Mick Ronson. And I stayed behind and did his mum's hair for many, many years.
You're still there doing it today?
I'm still there doing it today, yes. Do you want to look at the photograph or not?
Yeah, what's that?
This is what David sent to me for looking after his mum. Signed it. This was when he did the Elephant Man in New York on stage.
Yeah, they had a car taken the high street.
Good morning, everyone. A very warm welcome to Beckenham, especially to all of you who travel considerable distances to be with us today in this historic pub this morning. And many of you, in fact, have not only come from across the country, but from other countries as well. These days, this pub is the Rat and Parrot, but to everyone here today, and for many of us, in fact, it'll always be the 3 Tons. And the cultural cradle of the musical genius of David Bowie, Beckenham's own local hero, whom we honour today. And about time too, I'm sure you'll all agree. But since no one, however famous they are, in the borough of Bromley will get one of our blue plaques in their own lifetime, it has been left to the tremendous efforts of Cliff Watkins and the Beckenham Copers Cope Residents Association, who've made today's unique international event possible. Cliff and your residents group, thank you all for what you've done today on behalf of Bromley and Beckenham, and on behalf of David Bowie fans worldwide, to rightly honour one of the world's greatest living popular musicians, our hero, David Bowie. Ladies and gentlemen, David Bowie cannot be with us in person today, sadly. But you all know he's sent his very best wishes from his home in America. But we are honoured indeed to have two of David's closest friends from the late 60s and early 70s who helped him create the legendary Beckenham Arts Lab here in the Three Tons. So I ask you to warmly welcome Mary Finnegan and Christina Ostrom. And as Beckenham's mayor today, I have the unique and unforgettable privilege of asking Mary and Christina to perform the unveiling ceremony to our local hero, David Bowie. Mary and Christina.
Thank you, and hello everyone. Hi. Well, we're here to celebrate David Bowie's achievements, but we're also here to celebrate the people who joined him at the Three Tons to create that weird and wonderful phenomenon called the Beckenham Arts Lab. It happened in 1969, which was an appropriate year for a summer of love. It was the year when hippie culture was at its peak, the year of the first moon landing, the year John Lennon gave back his NBE, and the year when HRH Charles became the Prince of Wales. It was also the year when Mayor Holbrook joined the Labour Party. Yeah! 1969, that got a better laugh than my joke. 1969 was a year of high achievement and high ideals, and the year when the Arts Lab movement spread out across the country from its nucleus in Drury Lane. The Beckenham Arts Lab was part of that movement, and it grew out of its origins as a folk club because a lot of people wanted this to happen. David Bowie, Christina, her then husband Barry and I started the ball rolling, but it was the enthusiasm of the people who gathered around us that turned it into something more than weekend entertainment. So what was that something more? I guess the best way to describe it is an experimental space where people could test their creative impulses. There was very little structure, and the Arts Lab events were never very well organized. But within that free zone, extraordinary things happened, and some of them are still going strong. The psychedelic happenings of the 1960s and the Arts Lab movement were the birthplaces of multimedia. Music, video, light shows, drama, mime, poetry, puppetry and dance all put in an appearance in a glorious creative tapestry right here in what was in those days an unremarkable high street pub. We called the Beckenham Arts Lab growth, and that really did chime with the times. We grew our hair, we grew our talents, and we grew some interesting pot plants. Everyone who took part was eager to grow out of the straitjacket of suburban life and into a state of self-awareness. Young people blessed with a radical outlook in the 1960s were pioneers because they made it clear beyond doubt that they didn't want to grow into clones of their parents. They wanted to explore the world, they wanted to live very dangerously, and they wanted to find meaning. Most of us take these aspirations for granted today. But also, everyone I knew in those days wanted to have fun, and that was the reason why we adored Sunday nights at the Three Tons. Performers from all over London and the southeast turned into iron filings, drawn irresistibly to the magnet in Beckenham High Street. Some names you might recognise who played here include Peter Frampton, Mick Ronson, Tony Visconti, Dave Cousins and the Straubs, Lionel Bart and Steve Harley, who's paying a return visit today, and I think we say hooray to that. And there were many less famous but equally talented musicians: Roger Wootton and Comus, George Underwood, Mox, Hutch, Robert Stevens, Amory Kane, Keith Christmas and Bridget St. John. And there was a chap called David Bowie, who in those days was less famous than some of the names I've just mentioned. But here, his career started to take off. This pub was the launch pad for Space Oddity, his first hit song, and most of the numbers on his second album were performed at the Three Tons for the first time. Janine, for example, and the Wild-Eyed Boy from Freechild, which he wrote for my son Richard. David Bowie was the energy and the inspiration behind the success of the Beckenham Arts Lab. We touched the lives of the whole community because we took our enthusiasm into the streets and into the parks. We did a series of concerts and talks at the Bromley Arts Centre, and we threw a free festival that crowned our Summer of Love and made a profit. In 1969, we believed we could change the world, and maybe, in some ways, we did. Most of us were moved by what happened during the time of the Beckenham Arts Lab. It shaped my life, and probably a lot of other people's too. And those other people, I have to confess that my memory's a bit blurred, but I do recall the master puppeteer Brian Moore, Nick Godwin, who produced the weekly newsletter with me, Chaz and Liz Lippiott, who did a bit of everything, a certain beautiful young woman called Mary Angela Barnett, and the late, great Spud Murphy. And there was Jamie Plummer, Dave Walkling, Susie Cartwright, Nita Bowes, Nick Jennings, and Dave Bebbington. These are names I remember. There are many more I've forgotten, but I can still see their faces. And it's totally brilliant that some of those original Arts Lab people are here today. Some of you may be wondering why David Bowie came to live in Beckenham in the first place, and Christina knows a bit about that, don't you?
Yes. Hi. David was a very old friend of my ex-husband, and he moved in with us in Beckenham, and Mary lived downstairs. And after he stayed with us for a couple of weeks, he became the lodger of Mary's. And that's about it, really. And then I did the ticket sales. I took everyone's money. Yeah. So many years ago.
Oh, it doesn't feel as if an awful lot has changed, apart from the inside of the pub, does it? No. So do you think we'd better pull that string now?
All right, then let's do it.
Woo!
I'm going to hang on to you.
Yeah, right. Come on across this road. There you go. Here it comes. So I think we're all going to go inside now.
Come round a little bit, that's it.
Not my back, actually. Thank you.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, I know. I want
Okay.
Yeah, I used to
paid
force spot.
people. We never ever
I got the
paid
box
people.
office. I got 50%
Oh,
of
we
the
did
game.
actually. We always paid our main performer
It was-
something.
Yeah, and that
Yes.
was the first. That was the first
Your
time I ever
first
got
paid
paid.
gig.
Yeah. There must have been about 150 people got in there. It was absolutely
Big
heaving.
jammed, yes.
And I got 50%. They pay about 25 pence each or something.
Yeah. No, I think it's actually it's about 50. I don't know. It may have changed.
We know you can see Led Zeppelin for £1 in 1970.
Yeah.
3-day ticket for the Isle of Wight was only £3.
Glastonbury, 2016. come and enjoy. We've got something very nice happening here. This is the man, Steve Harley. We've got a real rock musician, somebody who got very famous as well. He did his first gigs here at the Three Tons, and it was his first paying gig. Please welcome Steve Harley.
I've got 15 quid. 15 quid. Cage us in there. There's one. I wrote this about that time, so my reason for doing it. 1, 2, 3. rocking the boat. It's cold, it's hungry, it's scared. He's got his father on his mind, and this message to get out. I wanna steal, I wanna give, I wanna die, I wanna live, I wanna find my own identity like any other teenage kid. I just wanna be someone, anyone. But I wanna be a star. Just wanna be someone, anyone. I'll be complete. I could be a star. Just wanna be someone, anyone. But I wanna be a star. Just wanna be someone, anyone. Be complete. This is Robbie Gladwell. He's never heard of Beckenham, never mind played it. 15 quid they gave me, 15 fucking quid. I was earning that a week as a lot of money. But it was a proper room that had a door just for listening. That's right. Door. Yeah. And coming back. It was a door, it was a room, it was a room. Had a stage and things. And I got 15 quid. You want that old stuff, I guess. Here's another old one. Old one. 1, 2, 3. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, 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 boom. This is out. Turn around and force away. Watch the wind you go with me. Boom, boom, boom. This is out. They better than the time. Let me down if I like you. Let me tell the things so cruel. Come on, let me, it's the cool. I haven't played in the smoke for 28 years. My contract say. One more, one you know. Yeah, might get you to sing this one for me. Oh, I've lost my voice for a fucking smoke. Here's one, you know. You done it all. You broken every bone. All the way to the floor. You spoke again. No matter what you say. For only metal, not to bones. There's nothing left, it's all gone, run away. When you're tired, go out. It's just a test, game for us to play. When I lose, it's hard to smile. Resist, resist. Swing yourself. Probably ain't as easy as it seems. There ain't no more. You take on everything. From my belief in my love. I hope you know my faith in everything. I know what faith is. I know it's worth. My first break was here, that's why I'm here, if you're wondering. Good luck to him. Robbie Gladwell here, bless him, Robbie Gladwell. Thank you, thank you.